40.
39.
Number 1.
39.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7. 6. 5.
4.
3.5.
3.
2.
1.
Hey, Rocky, you want to see me pull a show out of my hat? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And look at this, hey, look, Curtis has already got one voted for, I don't know, by a Facebook user. I don't know who that exactly is. Maybe they don't want to let you know what their identity is on that. But hey, folks, we survived the eclipse. I thought maybe we wouldn't have another show after yesterday, but it was really pretty cool. But I got to tell you, my hillbilly wife was out in the garden watching the chickens, because she wanted to see what they do if they had 4 minutes of darkness. And I did go out there and look at them, and they just sort of looked like they were just like, oh, what's this? But they did not go into their coop, and they did not sleep. And egg production was not cut down. I know that ex-Senate candidate John Rust will be proud of that fact, that the egg production didn't shut down. So, hey, I hope you enjoyed the eclipse. That was really, really cool when you could look up there and see this, pretty much total darkness for 4 minutes. And it was sort of neat. I wish we had one today. It'd have been fun to do it again today, but we didn't, and we don't. Life goes on. But hey, tonight we have Curtis Hill, governor candidate. And we were talking backstage before the show. I think he's been on 4 or 5, 6 times. He should get votes just for his bravery for being on the Mouthwash Talk Show, and his political career is still alive. That's what's unbelievable, that he's come on here. But he's a good sport, always has been. You know what I always say, 80% of why I vote for somebody is you can get a hold of him. And Curtis has always been someone that I've been able to get a hold of and have a conversation with. In fact, that picture that was in the introduction, I'm going to be nice and say 30 minutes late to our meeting. I had scheduled a meeting, but I got stuck on a job site. And I didn't want to go down to the State House and meet Curtis Hill because I didn't know him that well. It was just the first few times I'd met him. And I had to run home and take a shower, hurry up, and come back with my suit on. And he was gracious enough not to overschedule somebody else for me. We had a great conversation. I don't even remember what we talked about, but he's always been someone who I can count on to answer, to pick up the phone, and to answer questions, which we're going to have some questions for him tonight. I see we have Lucy and Brad backstage. Oh, this just in. Tiffany is a little bit late tonight because she is actually on a date with a Bigfoot. And she might even said this is a Bigfoot that has come back. So I don't know. Maybe when she gets here, we can talk about that. But I'm going to go ahead and bring on Curtis. He is actually driving in his car, coming back from an event up in Marion, Indiana. So that's the kind of guy he is. He'll just come on here. And Curtis, how you doing this evening?
John, I'm doing great, buddy. And I want to clarify, I want to correct something. I'm not actually driving. I'm in the car.
Oh, yeah, in the car. Yeah,
but someone else is driving, so I'm in the passenger seat. But
yeah,
that's great to be here.
That's not good for a past AG to be texting and driving after. I think you had some commercials of that nature. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. But yeah, I'm glad you've decided to come on tonight.
I gotta get myself back in the frame here.
Yeah. Who's your cameraman? You?
Yeah, it's me.
I get a new one. Well, so Curtis, tell us about the event you were at tonight a little bit.
Well, we were up in Grant County in Marion, Indiana. My hand's moving around here. We're at the Right to Life North Central dinner tonight, and had a very moving story from some folks who were the guest speakers. And it's always a it's always a poignant event when you go to a Right to Life because it's very meaningful. But you see some great people who are advocates for life, and it was a good evening.
All right, cool. So, you've got, I know when we talked before you decided to get into the governor's race, and I don't think there was 6 people in it at that point. At that point, how many people had actually said they were going to be in the race?
I think at the time I got in the race, I believe there were 3 people. I made 4, and then there's been 2 that came in after.
Yeah.
So we have 6 total.
Have we ever had this crowded of a governor's race? I was just wondering because it just seems like it's always a couple people, and I don't remember all this pomp and circumstance when Holcomb ran last time with everybody running around running and everything. I didn't remember who ran against Holcomb, so that tells you how much press it got.
Well, we haven't had these kind of races. I mean, if you go back, you know, 20 years ago, you had Mitch Daniels, and he was running from Washington D.C. Just come back from working in the White House, and so he pretty much cleared the field and didn't really have a serious primary contender. He had to uh, oh he did have. I'm just thinking he did have a contender um, from Advance America,
Eric Miller.
Eric Miller. Thank you.
Wow, I didn't even see. That's how this is like who won the Final Four this
But
year.
that was 20 years ago. Then Mike Pence came in and had pretty much a free run. So this is the first time that we can remember that we had a contested race in the primary like this.
Yeah, you know what? I do notice that. I mean, folks are working hard. I mean, here you are, you're doubling up. You're getting out of an event on your way back. Probably, are you on the way back to Indy? Is that right?
No, I'm going to Northern Indiana. We have some events in the morning in Northern Indiana, so I'll head up there, then head back towards the south tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just see everybody working so hard, and you know what? You don't seem to even be, flinching at this. It just seems pretty natural to you to just get out there and go to these events. And how much of the AG experience has helped you with running for this? Because it's just, I mean, you're in a race. I mean, let's face it, you're in a dogfight with these other folks. They're out doing the same things you're trying to do.
Well, the AG's race is a tremendous advantage to me because I've had an opportunity to run a statewide race before, and the key to a statewide race is you got to get around the state. You got to meet people, and so you have a very strong new geography experience when you've run a statewide race. Previously, there'd be counties that you'd never heard of. Now you find yourself knowing exactly where just about every county is, and every little venue. And you find some remarkable things. You see the state in a whole different way. You see small communities that look very similar. You've got what I call the courthouse square look. A lot of communities look exactly the same with a slightly different courthouse square, and so it's a long state, but it's pretty cool when you've run a statewide campaign before and you run across people that you've met before or who've experienced you. So it's like coming home.
Yeah. So, and and you do have name recognition, and I do have to bring up, you have gotten the most votes of anybody in any race. I think you got more votes than Trump did in 16, and so your name has been out there. Do you find that you run into very many people that don't really know who you are?
Well, every now and then there'll be someone who doesn't know us, but yeah, we were pretty grateful. In 2016, we had 1.6 million votes, and we had 80,000 more votes than Trump. I remember when he came to an event in Elkhart, and he introduced me, and he said, Curtis Hill, the great Attorney General from Indiana, who had more votes than anybody in the history of the state of Indiana except for Trump. And I didn't have the heart to correct him, but he did get fact checked on that one, and they found that he was wrong on that point. But I had 80,000 more votes than him.
Well, Trump's got an ego that only can fit in. His ego is the only one that can fit in the room, right? Sometimes on that. So
something like that.
Yeah. But he's definitely a promoter. I mean, he's probably been the most promoter of probably a candidate we've had in forever. He's got promoter numbers, he's got promoter style, and he's got a golden toilet. So there you go. That pretty much
There you go.
should tell you everything you know. I got one question for you here. I got one of our Facebook users here. This is a very long thing here, but I'll go to the end here. I'm going to start out with a question before I get the panel on here. It talks about Theodore Wilson, Teddy Wilson. We'll call him Teddy Wilson. Main objective was always heal the division and heal the divide. I thought that was something about healthcare, but how would you go about that? About healing the divide? I mean, yes, we have a divide. I maybe didn't notice.
Well, I think there is a great deal of division in our country, and why not? I mean, much of it centers around the celebration of diversity, and the problem with celebrating diversity is that we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on the things that separate us. What we need to be doing is identifying what makes us diverse, and certainly acknowledging our diversity, but taking our diverse interests and bringing them together, finding a unified purpose. Until we do that, we're going to struggle as a nation. And that's what's been the most difficult aspect of our existence in the last few years, particularly after the pandemic. Our divide has gotten so deep and so polarizing that it's very, very difficult to see how we ever bring people together. It's fine to have political differences and distinctions, but ultimately we have to find a common purpose. And our common purpose is that we have to unite behind freedom and our ability to express ourselves as Americans. Right now we have an entire segment of our community, in my estimation, that's not interested in hearing what the other side has to say. And I firmly believe that my side, at least the folks who I associate with in my side, have an open mind to be able to listen to other points of view. We may argue our points, but it's imperative that we have the responsibility and the right to listen and debate and put everything towards the best interest of our nation going forward. That's an important aspect that we need to do in terms of bringing our communities together, bringing our state together, and ultimately bringing our nation together.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Easy application may be the tough part of that, because I really don't think social media has helped us at all. I think we'd have a pandemic, and then we have a social media where people can say what, like drive by in the car and yell something out the window and drive away and not have to,
no accountability. No accountability and the anonymity. The internet and social media has been very destructive towards public discourse, and it's in particular the impact it's having on children and their inability to engage in interpersonal communication in an appropriate manner. So we've got some very strong challenges from a communication standpoint, and one of the concerns I have also is the increasing reliance upon artificial intelligence. Just a few years ago, we were looking at whether cars could drive by themselves, and now we're talking about robots. We're really moving into an era where artificial intelligence is going to start kicking up in high gear, and it's going to have a deep impact on our society that we need to start gearing up for.
Yeah, well, I actually picked a bad day to watch Leave the World Behind. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not, but it's the one that the Obamas produced, and that it's sort of one of those things where, hey, all of our technology went bad, and it showed all these Teslas crashing into each other because.
Oh, I saw that. I did see that.
Yeah, I liked. I've heard people complain about it. I've heard some people, I'm not watching that movie because blah blah blah. But it was very interesting to see how, you talk about what Instagram was down for like 3 hours the other day, and people were like, their hair, I can't do it. So it makes you think about it. Then when you have an eclipse or something like it, you think about different things about, hey, it just keeps going. It keeps going. It keeps going. We get used to it. But what happens when it all shuts down? Only phone number I know is my wife's phone number and my phone number for when I was a kid. I wouldn't know anybody's phone number because it's in my phone. If my phone shut down, I got more questions, but I want to get the panel on here, and we got our audience asking some questions too. So let's I'm going to go ahead and bring Brad on here. Let's do this way, Brad.
Hey, John, remember the revolution will not be televised.
Right? Yeah, it will not be televised.
If everything goes out, like we're all going to be kind of on our own. It'll be an interesting Hunger Gamesy kind of ordeal.
That's how that movie was sort of like that. Nobody really knew what was going on.
Well, no, and then that new one, the Civil War movie that's coming out this week.
Oh, really?
Have you seen? Oh, yeah. There's like a scene where they, like a rocket like flies into the Lincoln Memorial and like blows it up. It looks pretty good, but just not
What's
the
it called?
uplifting movie that I would like right now. It's called Civil War.
Yeah, I'm usually you can see how long it took me to watch Leave the World Behind. That was just that's weird. So hey, let's bring on Lucy. We can spice this thing up a little bit. I'm gonna put Curtis down here on there. Okay. Hey, Lucy, how you doing tonight? I am not John Galt, or I am John Galt. Okay.
I am Galt. Yes, I am John Galt. It's the strike of the mind.
We're the real John Galt. Please stand up. Please stand up.
When those who refuse to produce, just sit down, then we're just going to leave. I mean, to talk about leave the world behind. I don't have a bunker. I aspire to that kind of.
Have you seen that movie, Lucy? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I think I should watch it. I wanted to watch.
I was like questioning. I was like, how do I want to watch this? I want to watch this, but I was like, Sunday. I try to take off a little time on Sundays, at least watch something. But I'm thinking that was just bad timing with the eclipse coming and everything. I'm like, wow, I'm really like. I had to get my magic 8 ball down to see if we were going to survive it or not. But hey, we got a good show tonight. We got Curtis Hill on here. I think he's moved in first place, probably our most guest appearances on the show. He's been spectacular on every show. I do have to remind him, though, that one time we had a candidate in a car that said something that Lucy asked a question of that pretty much did him in, I would say. And, oh, by the way, I did ask Jefferson Shreve if he wanted to be on the Mouthwash show last week, and he said, no, I don't think so. so anyway, Lucy, be nice. Don't ask questions that are correct, that the guy answers right, and then he goes back on that. So that's...
that won't happen here. Curtis is super smart. He's an attorney. He thinks before he opens up his mouth.
Yeah, that's a good.
There are other guests we've had that don't, but Curtis does. So
yeah, we've
interested.
We have had that. So let's get this. I want to start with a question from the audience. This is from one of our longtime viewers. This is Slick Witty. If Curtis is elected, will you try to get rid of the DEI department of the Indiana GOP? So I think I've heard your answer on this, but what say you, Curtis?
I'm not the GOP. I've talked publicly that the first day I'm in office, I will get rid of the DEI office of the state of Indiana. There's a diversity czar and a department that is put in place. In my estimation, it's a check the box mentality, which I don't care for. I think that diversity is a wonderful thing, but not at the cost of excellence. Inclusion is a great thing, but not at the cost of competence. And we can have equity all day long as we're being fair. I don't believe that racial preferences is the answer. It wasn't the answer in the 70s when we tried affirmative action. It's not the answer now. It sends a false message on what we're doing about racial discord, and it's also being propped up. It's being DEI is attached to race. It's really goes back to the old adage of the left. It says attached to black and they hold it back. And the real agenda for DEI really has nothing to do with race, but it has everything to do with sexual and
we're losing him. We're losing him a little bit. Right when we got to the meat of the conversation, he went through. He probably went by your house, Brad, and there's no internet there.
No, he's headed up north now. That's yeah.
Oh yeah, there's definitely no internet up there.
Strong family structures. We don't have good neighborhoods and communities, and it all is the building blocks, and it all begins with the truth.
Mm-hmm. Hey, why don't we have Curtis? We know you're a good-looking guy, Curtis. Just turn off your camera and let's listen to the audio because you've got such small bandwidth with your internet connection. We really want to hear what you have to say. So I don't know if you can.
Yeah, we lost you a little bit there, Curtis, on the back half of that one.
So turn off the camera.
Yeah. Let's see if that'll help.
Now we still got him in audio. It says Curtis.
Yeah. That's better. That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah, we'll be yelling at clouds now.
That's easier. That's easier for me too, so that I don't have to do the shaky camera with the hand thing.
Yeah, that's good. And can you put the microphone closer to you?
Sure.
I like doing online live on air
Well,
pre-production stuff.
well, I can't put the
Yes.
microphone too close because the microphone's in my ear.
Okay. That's going to be a new trick. If you do that trick, you can get some extra votes probably, I think.
I'll
So
just try to speak up a little bit.
yeah, there you go. That's
Hey,
good.
that's a perfect segue to talk about, Apple's patent that was just revealed, where you know how you can do an MRI and you can read brain activity up to 3 feet outside of the brain. And so you can show somebody, a picture of a house or a dog or a crocodile, and they read the brain waves. And pretty soon they start to see patterns emerge in how human brains interpret a crocodile or a house. Well, and I called this years ago. Those of you that are wearing Bluetooth headphones, especially the ones that are a pair and go between your brain, they are communicating through your brain and collecting data. So Apple is literally reading your thoughts. And probably the other brands are too.
Can you
Yeah,
be arrested for it? Like your thoughts, or is
Yeah.
that like
I'm gonna kill my neighbor. I'm gonna kill my neighbor. Is that
Minority Report has not happened yet, but I
not
do
happened yet?
expect it to.
It's fair.
I do
Well,
expect that to happen.
Curtis touched on the AI, on how that works, and it is. We are definitely in some very, very interesting times. We've been at this definitely the computer age. I would say, Curtis, how would you be able to use positively AI or updating some of this stuff in the government? I know that there's still things where they ask you to fax things in, and I don't know if anybody actually faxes anything, but there is our elderly friends. Some of those people just have fax machines. I get it.
for federal or for state aid, they have to fax it in. We actually at our library, a lot of our business for faxes is that it's for state aid. They only allow faxes. They don't have an email. They don't do it by phone. You have to sign it, have it faxed in, which I don't understand why. Because
Yeah, well, so Curtis, there's a question for you. How would you or not do? How would you put it in place or not put it in place? What would be your stance on AI in our governor's role, so to speak?
Well, I think we have to recognize that technology is here to stay, and we want to implore and use technology, but we don't want to be slaves to the technology. We're going to need to make sure that we engage in a bold regulatory plan with regard to artificial intelligence. We've already got situations where AI can read facial recognition. We've got voice altering programs. We've got to make sure that people are protected because you combine the AI technology with the number of scammers that we have out there, and you've got a very, very dangerous situation.
Yeah, that is one of the things that we just don't know. We put these things in place, and we'll find out later what happens. And it's always what I say. It's a great theory till you add people. I heard of somebody getting
the good news.
scammed the other day because somebody told them that they had a bad check and they had to call their bank and they end up getting. I'm like, come on, who thinks about this stuff? I don't know. It's sad. So Brad, you got another question for Kurt?
I was going to say con artists and Bible salesmen are usually the ones who would probably do that. I'd say.
Yeah.
Usually they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Like the
snake,
one guy.
Snake oil. I wonder how the sales are going on that.
Yeah, Mr. Hill, what's the number one issue that you've heard facing Hoosiers? Because I always hear different stats from different candidates. So
It depends,
but just based on talking to them.
Oh, go ahead. It depends on where you are. If you're in the 4th Congressional District, Tippecanoe County, White County, Boone County, in that area, there's a lot of talk about the LEAP project and the proper role of the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, which I call the shadow government. There's a lot of folks who are very concerned about that LEAP project and what the state's interests are. That's a big concern for a lot of folks. Another topic in many other parts of the state are property taxes. What to do about property taxes, particularly with assessed values going through the roof, getting some type of relief for seniors. We're taking a look at what types of alternatives we can look at and studying a proper tax structure that will help provide some relief. Many people are very, very concerned about medical liberty and medical freedom in light of the pandemic. And the concept of objective truth and the loss of faith of our institutions has created a great deal of concern, perhaps some fear that the government is out of control, that censorship and cancel culture is increasing. There's other sections that are concerned about education. Where are we with education? We've talked a great deal about limiting the federal government's access to our Indiana students and making sure that we return to basic principles and making sure that we, along with having parental rights, make sure that parents understand their responsibility to work within the education system. So there's a variety of issues. I wouldn't say that there's one singular issue that's a priority for all Hoosiers. I think there's different priorities depending on who you are, what section of the state you are, and what your circumstances are.
That is a fabulous answer. Thank you so much, because everybody that I've heard is like the border. And thank, because Rakita, Jim Banks, Mike Braun, they've all said, the board. And I don't, everybody that I talk to, it is about more individual based kind of, in my life sort of issues, not a blanket vague kind of a thing. So, and how it was, by each county or by each area, it's different. So thank you. That's very good.
I think you might have been better off asking Brad what's right, what's going really well. That would be a shorter answer. But we have Jody here who's got a follow-up on this. Does Curtis have any solutions? I'm sure Curtis does. Curtis, would you like to elaborate on any of those solutions?
Well, certainly we have solutions. In the education field, I want to reduce the amount of dependence on the federal government. The federal government on education is like a crack cocaine dealer. They hand out money, and the prize is you have to follow the federal rules and programs. And that allows for the bureaucracy in the state to grow, and yet we still have third graders who don't know how to read. So we start by reducing the dependency on the federal government and returning local control. And local control means making sure that teachers have what they need. It's not just about paying them more, but it's making sure that their working conditions are suitable. My wife's a teacher, and the number of times that I've seen my wife come home from school and work till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, midnight, because she's a faithful teacher, she's committed to her students, but there's not enough time in the day to handle all of the extra responsibilities that teachers have on them. And get her work done during the prep time. So it interferes with family time. And there's a lot of teachers that are leaving the profession because of that. So these are the types of things that we have to get under control. Speaking of the border, while I wouldn't say that everybody brings up the border is an issue that people do talk about. And one of the first things that we have to do is do our part with deploying the National Guard to Texas or other border states that they're wanting to move forward. Before Governor Holcomb deployed the National Guard, I was calling publicly for the National Guard to be deployed in Indiana because I think we need to do our part. But once we have the Guard in place helping out, that's not the only solution. The solution back home is we have to make sure that employers are not employing illegals. That provides incentive for more to come to this state, for more to come into the country. And as harsh as it may seem, we're going to have to draw some lines. We're going to have to draw some lines that I wasn't even considering drawing a few years ago. When we had the border closed, there were certain things that we could do to start quantifying the numbers of people that were here and identifying them in baskets. Folks who had been here for a while that we could determine and put them on a path to staying. And then the folks who were causing criminal activity and other burdens on resources that we needed to try to scoop up and get out of here. Well, we don't have that luxury now. We've got tens of millions of illegals and insufficient resource to fix it. So that's going to be a tremendous burden on our society. So we do have we have solutions for some things. We have ideas on others that are going to take a great deal of cooperation between myself and the General Assembly to bring into fruition.
Yes, excellent, excellent. Okay, so we have our guest tonight. This is Curtis Hill. He's running for the governor of Indiana. He is audio only because he is in the car. So we have a Facebook user here. I don't know what they don't sometimes it comes from a different page or something, and we don't know who it is. Where do we find Mr. Hill's campaign schedule? Where do we, Curtis? Tell us where people can find your information, where you might be headed.
Well, we have sometimes we post things up on curtishill.com. Curtishill.com is our website. We have our Facebook and X feeds on there. From time to time, we'll put up a sheet up on where we're going to be. But quite frankly, it changes quite rapidly from time to time, and sometimes it's very impromptu. So we sometimes have the schedule up, and sometimes we're just on the fly. But we've got. I know we're going to be in several counties over the course of the next couple of days. We're trying to stay nimble because we really have a grassroots operation where we go in from community to community to see as many people as possible. We're up against a lot of multimillionaires that can write some checks. And what's interesting about writing these checks, you can hire a big marketing company and take some polling and decide what you think that people want to hear. And then you can create these beautiful ads with you walking through a factory with a hard hat or put on a pair of dungarees and walk through a cornfield. And that shapes the image that the candidate wants. And it's interesting because some people buy into that and say, well, that's the guy I'm going to vote for because of some 30-second or a minute commercial that's an absolutely false illusion of what a person stands for. And what we talk about when we're on the road is making sure that people recognize that if you've never been in elective office before, then you don't know what a person is going to react to. If a person has been elected to office, go back to their record. When these candidates talk about doing something bold and courageous, look at what they've done in their current office or previous offices and identify what they've done that's been so bold that they'll be bold as governor.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that one thing I know about you, Curtis, is you have been your own man and done your job the way you see fit, and I think that is possibly why some in the Republican Party took a disliking to you.
So they hate it.
Yeah,
they hate it.
I would at Curtis. I'll try to be as delicate and as nice as I can tiptoe through those tulips. But you're right. That's what it is. So I would say, folks, if you want somebody who knows what the inside of the government workings are, and that didn't really fall into that swamp, then Curtis could be your guy. Lucy, you got another question.
Well, it's interesting that Curtis was talking about the polls that are taking because I recently participated in a survey that was orchestrated by Yale and Columbia and UC. And what they did, it was super interesting. It was a Zoom call where they matched me up with somebody whose political views on illegal aliens was completely the opposite of mine. And this process, they're trying to determine where you are.
How long
And
did it? Hold on. How long did it take for them to hang up on you?
no,
Wait,
that
here
was completely not the point of it. Go ahead, Curtis.
I just came back. Lucy, I lost you for just a second. You were getting ready to talk about that study, and then I went blank.
Oh yeah, so it was really interesting. So Columbia, Yale, and UC got together, and they orchestrated this study. And here's what I'm gonna, and I'm really excited about it. As you could tell, I'm like all tripping over my words. I think the point of the study was actually to take people like me that are the opposite end because they're trying to take the temperature in this country of, how much they can get away with the illegal aliens. And I believe since that Zoom was with my, consent, I consented to having it recorded. I think that they will totally go through that and look for micro expressions and the vocabulary that I use to express myself. So I made sure to lecture them in my best libertarian way. But what they did is they matched me up with a young man who, and I will say this, I believe that it was like a scene that I was in, like in a play, like it was, oh, what do you call it? Curtis, you'll know the word for this. When somebody pretends to be something that they're not. And so they matched me up with this guy that claimed that he wanted illegal aliens to just have the same opportunities that everybody else does in this country because he had a friend that he was in school with, and she was from Ecuador, and her parents had come here illegally. And so he was concerned about her status and her ability to move forward in life. So I believe that was a total setup and a totally made up scenario. And the idea was to see if by pulling at your heartstrings, because everything that he said to me just didn't seem authentic. It was definitely scripted, but I let him have it. So I don't know what that's going to do to their AI. I'm sure that I'll be the outlier,
So
but
Lucy,
that's how big a deal this is, right? They're
so
they're like
yeah,
literally
this
finishing
is
studies.
it's a big deal. So I'm going to ask you and Curtis a question here. So I know a guy that has a restaurant here in Indianapolis. He's had it for 25 years, not legal. He's not legal, but he's run and operated this restaurant. What do we do with someone like that? Do we just let them keep doing what they're doing? Do we have some path? What do we do? I'll let Lucy go first, and Curtis, you can go second. And Brad, you could get in on this too. I want to hear all three of them. We'll go Lucy, Brad, then Curtis, you'll get your shot.
So, as a libertarian, I believe in free emigration and free immigration. So, I don't believe that lines drawn on a map should determine where a human being is constrained. And I also don't believe that our rights come from the accident of our birth being inside, the lines of the United States. So I believe that every person around the world has, the same rights, inherent natural rights that we do in the USA. But we are very blessed that a lot of bloodshed happened and a lot of people were, willing to pick up arms and uh, and make sure that those things were put into the Constitution. So, what do we do with somebody who's been here? Well, first of all, he's a human being. He should be able to go anywhere he wants in the world. Now, the second thing that comes, to that is what kind of, if any, what kind of controls should we have on people coming into the country and leaving the country? I'm in favor of a legal, expedited path for people to come into the country so that we know who is coming in. Just like if they're coming from my front door and where my kids are, I want to know who they are. I want a background check. I want to know that they're not, currently criminals and don't have criminal intent. But I very much want the best, the brightest, the absolute most motivated people in the world to come here because that's how we get better. We get better by an influx of talent, but also for those of us that might have an eye, towards the exit. Right now, the IRS will follow you for 10 years if you try and leave the United States. Yes, they follow you for 10 years and demand taxes. That's where California got the idea that people leaving California for other states, California follows you and tries to tax you for a decade. So free immigration and free immigration and deal very harshly with lawbreakers.
So
So
hold on
that's
a
what I
second.
got.
I'm
Curtis,
trying
your
to
turn.
figure out where I mean, I was trying to find an answer in there. So we got to deal harshly with this guy. So what's that mean? Does that mean like put him in the stockades or cut his head off? What does
No,
that
no,
mean?
no, not harshly with him. No, I'm saying
Oh,
harshly with criminals.
with
Human
criminals.
beings are not, yeah, with criminals. Human beings are
So
not
you
inherently
just leave,
illegal.
let sleeping dogs lie. Is that pretty much the same what I'll be talking there? I
It's
mean,
it's 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 about recognizing a person's inherent right to exist. He was born on the same planet that you and I were born on, and when you walk across imaginary lines drawn on a map, that should not mean that you're put in prison for it. So I don't believe that any
all
human
right, all
is
right.
illegal.
Well, full disclosure with my company, I got audited by the state an employment audit last year, and I have no illegal people working for me. The only thing I had wrong was I wrote a check to my wife. My wife, that I should have taken out myself, so I got charged employment on her. So it was like $192. So that if you're coming for me, state, come back again. I'll let you see my books and all that stuff. I take taxes out. Everybody's good. Have a nice day. Okay, Brad. I think it might be easier to get a person across the southern border than it is to get a walleye in across the Canadian border if you have too many walleyes in your cooler.
Yeah.
But so go ahead. You tell me what you think. What should we do with this gentleman this person that
I
has a
feel
restaurant?
I feel if the argument is always about, we don't want criminals and we only want the best and whatever. This guy has been running a business for 20 years and
Paying
feeding
taxes,
people.
paying taxes.
And so I feel like, retroactively there should be something, like just because we didn't notice it or because the government didn't notice it. It's like, are you really going to penalize them for that? Like, I mean, I say that and I'm like, yeah, of course they're going to penalize him for that. But no, I don't think they should. I think he should just be.
All right. Okay. All
track
right, Curtis. Now the opinion that really counts. I love your guys' opinion, by the way. You're just not running for office, so you don't have your career on the line. Your library career is not on the
Yeah,
line.
yeah.
Losing your insurance and your working with people and your networking is not on the line with this. So, Curtis, tell us what you think.
Well, I think, I appreciate where Lucy's coming from philosophically, but we do have, those lines aren't artificial. We have a sovereign interest in in the world. It's not just the United States. The entire framework of our international societies are built around sovereign interests. So I do believe that our lines are there for a reason, and I don't accept that because a person is born free, and I do agree with that they can be anywhere. We have rules and a constitutional framework that allows us to organize ourselves as a society. So so the first step is people don't have a right to come into this country, an unfettered right to come into this country from other countries. We have the right as a sovereign nation to manage and control who comes and who goes. That's the easy part. The difficult part is I sympathize with the plight of the person who's been here illegally for 20 years, a productive and fruitful member of our society. And from a personal standpoint, I'm just as compassionate for that person as anyone else. But the question becomes, are we prepared to do what's necessary to stop the influx of illegals coming in and putting a strain on our resources and creating difficulty? I'm not one that says that everyone that comes here is a criminal, but we can't. We've got people in this country who we're not able to take care of now, and we're bringing additional burdens. That's why it's interesting when we see the Black Democrats up in Chicago that are complaining because the resources are being constrained by the illegal populations that are coming there. They're getting fed up. So we've got a real disaster on our hands in terms of bringing in people ad nauseum. From a security standpoint, it's shocking to me that 22 years or 23 years after 9/11, we're still talking about border security and not recognizing the dangers that we have. The amount of nasty things that are coming across our border because we don't have proper border security is frightening. Not just drugs, but human trafficking and all of the other nightmare scenarios that are upon us. So I think that we absolutely have to have controls. The tough answer is, and this answer's changed for me. While a few years ago when we had the border, I think I just lost you guys.
No, you're still there.
Oh, okay. A few years ago when we had border security, when we had closed the border, that was our opportunity to identify pools of individuals, groups that had been here for 20 years and had been productive, engaged members of society, that we could then say, okay, let's put you on a path to where you stay. And then we have another pool of no-goodniks who are here violating crimes, violating laws, and doing undesirable things, and we can try to deport them. You can't do that when you have a porous border. When you have an open border policy where anybody can come, you're creating more incentives for people to flood the gates because they're thinking that once they get here, they have the fruits of being an American. And there is a huge advantage to being an American citizen. I thank God every day that I was born here and have the advantages of being an American. It's not that I want others not to have what I have, but we have to be able to manage and control that immigration process so that we can maintain the advantages that we have of being Americans. And the advantage to being Americans for the rest of the world is that we are the beacon of hope for the world. So it's not a small thing that we make sure that we're strong as a nation in order to do what we need to do for the rest of the world.
Yeah. That's a good answer because it's a tricky answer. It feels easy everybody to have the answer. We do not, and it just seems like the bar keeps moving because we keep getting more and more people in, and our audience is not as nice. The audience says, "Turn them in, name names," or
why?
And then, turn them in, name names. I would not turn.
Especially if, but that's the thing too. It's like if they are not, they've proven themselves already through 20 years,
Yes.
Right. And this is a question here. If he, the restaurant owner, is operating under our laws, that makes the situation entirely different. I don't know what it makes it different, but yes,
No,
this person has paid their sales tax. They paid.
It's not different. It's not different. If you're gonna take a position that you're going to turn back one illegal, you have to turn them all back. I mean, there's a consistency there.
But even if they've already proven themselves, like, I mean, I get because if they've proven themselves as a criminal or as a successful businessman.
But it's not a matter. It's not a matter of proving. It's a matter of disincentivizing
Yes.
more immigration. I mean, that's
Right.
that's the problem. If you give anybody a pass, and it's tough to say this, believe me, but if you give anybody a pass, you have to give everybody a pass. And if you give everybody a pass, then you've got an open border situation, and you've got a strain on our system, and we can't tolerate that system. Keep in mind, folks, we've got a $35 trillion debt, and that debt is increasing by $1 trillion every 100 days. We are coming close to 0 hour. So it's not like we're the thriving rich nation that can handle everybody's problems. We got problems of our own. I'm reminded of when I fly and the flight attendant says, when the mask pops down, before you put the mask on someone else, put the mask on yourself. We have got to put the mask on Americans and the United States to strengthen ourselves. And we can't afford to be masking up other people right now because we need oxygen badly.
Right. Well, and then Jenna, one more question on this, and we're going to move on. Why didn't he, over the 20 years plus, try to become naturalized? Well, that is a good question. It's very difficult to get that done. And what's that saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Nobody bothers him. Nobody knows. He's just been here for so long. He's just in the neighborhood.
A lot easier then too, John. Like, shouldn't that process be?
I know another guy that's been here 30 years almost now, and I cannot answer that question. I am the person that would, if I was to do that, say I was to move to Switzerland, which I'd like to move there because that's where all the money is, then I would do everything I could to be a Swiss person. I'd get the army knife out. I'd do everything that to be Swiss. I would do it. But for, I guess to understand some of our Hispanic friends, which I've worked with Hispanic gentlemen for a lot of years, there's two ways to do things. And I'm amazed at the simplicity that sometimes that these guys come up with to get something done. So I think in a lot of ways they think, hey, it's working. Why not keep going this way?
Well, no, you got to get practical, guys. The reason that they don't do it the right way is because they're already here illegally. They can't go in and try to fix it once they're here because they're illegal. They're turning themselves in, and they're subject to deportation.
Yeah, so
that's the reason they have to stay in the shadows and
looking over their shoulders. And I do know for one fact that if say you're illegal, you get pulled over, you got a Honduran driver's license or whatever, they will write you a ticket, and that is it. And they used to be they would impound your car and different things, but now it's just a traffic ticket to move on. So I think that this burden doesn't just go on our society. It goes on the people that are trying to run our society, a law enforcement person, a teacher, our schools. We have schools now that, English is going to be a second language in some of the classes. So I don't know. And I think this is a lot bigger problem than a government, than a governor could handle.
And you've got lots of services being provided to illegals that are not being provided to American citizens.
Yeah.
I think, Curtis,
that's shameful.
Yep.
Curtis, I think you had nearly 100% the right answer. And you nailed it. I was speaking in philosophical terms, but the part that I left out is that when you have free immigration, you have to have a zero welfare state because you do attract the wrong people. That was very eloquently said by you. Attract the wrong people if you give them incentives to get here.
We do have this just in from Slick Witty. He is our research guy. He goes to all these meetings and different things. Wayne Township at 53% non-English learners. Yep. So, we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out all together, it looks like. All right. So who's got a different question? That one sort of got pretty detailed. See, this is the kind of stuff you do not have in a debate.
Well,
we only have this done.
I think we only got a couple minutes, but I did actually want to ask Curtis what he thought of how he thought the government did with COVID as a state government. Like, can you give them a grade?
Yeah, I give them a D at best. I mean, it was first of all, we took all of our cues from the federal government. The federal government lied to us from day one. Fauci said in one day, you don't have to wear masks. Then a couple of weeks later, he said, well, you do have to wear masks. I lied to you when I told you you didn't have to wear masks. So he confirmed the government lied. Once the government started lying about the processes, you couldn't trust them anymore. So we've lost complete faith in many of our institutions, particularly our healthcare institution. So from a federal standpoint, the FDA, CDC, all those folks did a horrible job. But here at home, we got no leadership because our leadership just looked to see what other states were doing and what the federal government was doing instead of looking at the numbers themselves. You know, if you go back to March of 2020 and April of 2020, we knew then that the people who were more at risk were older folks, over 70, 75 with comorbidities. They were the ones who we needed to protect. We didn't need to send our workforce home. We didn't need to shut down the economy. We didn't need to shut down our schools. You don't have a case of any child, healthy child, that died as a matter of getting COVID. The only kids who died were kids who had comorbidities that you can identify. So we turned our economy upside down, and our state was under emergency orders for 23 months. That's ridiculous. We're still feeling the effects of that. We've got kids, and not just kids, a lot of people have gone through depression. We have to acknowledge that. We had a lot of businesses that closed. Many small businesses didn't reopen. It was handled horribly, and there's no signs that it's going to do any better. There needs to be a full accounting, a full review of what happened, how it was managed, so that we can make sure that we don't do the same mistakes going forward. I know in this campaign, many of my opponents are talking real tough now about, well, if we have another pandemic, there will be no mask mandate, there will be no blah, blah, blah. Well, back in 2020, a few of these people were in office and they didn't do anything to stop the emergency orders. They didn't do anything to stop the mask mandates. When I was Attorney General, I stopped the mask mandate that was coming down from the governor. He had an announcement in July 22nd of 2020 that we were going to mandate masks and we're going to convict people of a Class B misdemeanor if they violated. And I came out with an opinion that same day and said, no, you don't have the authority. You don't have the authority under the emergency statute. You don't have the constitutional authority to create a Class B misdemeanor over something that the General Assembly never classified as a crime. And the governor stepped down. But that's what we were facing. We were facing really tyranny from within the state out of fear, and it created an entire dynamic that we're still reeling from at this point.
And just to be clear, can you remind me which party held the supermajority during this time?
Well, it was the Republican Party. I mean,
and the governor
and a Republican governor. I mean, it was a complete lack of leadership. I'll even go as far as tell you the General Assembly advocated. We put all this on Holcomb. Holcomb is certainly responsible for the emergency orders that came out. But I called upon the General Assembly in the summer of 2020 and said, there's no longer an emergency. We now know what we've got. We've got this pandemic, this virus that we have to deal with. Let's call a special session. Let's bring the General Assembly in so that we have fully 1/3 of our government off the sidelines and into the game. Not that I thought that they were going to come up with any creative solutions, but if you remember, not only did the governor not call them into special session, not only did the leadership of the General Assembly not ask to be called in, but when they got back in session in January of 2021, they did nothing. They went through an entire session and did nothing related to COVID. And so we went through that entire session with the emergency orders in place, session's over, and then only then did we start talking about the problems that we're having with school kids having been off of school for so long. That's a complete lack of leadership by our governor and the leadership of our General Assembly. I say the leadership because, as you folks know, there's only a handful of folks who run the General Assembly. We have a lot of good state reps and state senators, but the process is tilted towards the leadership who control what goes in and what goes out.
Yes, fear of the party, and it doesn't. And you're not afraid, and that's what makes them afraid. How'd you like how I phrased that up? That was pretty slick, I thought. But I want to do, Lucy. I'll let you have the last question here, and we'll let Curtis go.
Well, actually, Brad brought up the question that I was burning to ask, which is, we know that Curtis was really the only one that stood up for the people. Just as he outlined, we saw all these events, go in real time. So Curtis, here's the question. the mainstream media and the powers that be are gearing up for disease X. And Bill Gates has promised us that the next pandemic will really get our attention. So, if you were governor, what would you be willing to do to protect the rights of individual Hoosiers in the face of a federal government Leviathan?
Well, the federal government will never get their hands on Indiana's sovereignty. Not while I'm in charge. Um, we need to make sure that we're a separate, independent, sovereign state. We get our own information. We don't rely on the CDC. We don't rely on the FDA. They have failed us. In the past, it was very easy to look to the federal government for help because the federal government was supposed to be able to provide continuity and good information. As I said, we have lost faith in our institutions. I have lost faith in that apparatus of the federal government. So we need leadership in this state that will stand strong for our state. Now, by standing strong, that doesn't mean being stubborn and obstructionist, etc. It means making sure that we get our own independent information and research and ask our own questions and make our own decisions, notwithstanding what type of crap we're being fed by the federal government.
Well, it doesn't sound like if we elect Curtis Hill as governor of Indiana, nobody's going to be pushing us around. he's from the region. You don't screw with people out in the region, Brad. Remember that. If you don't ever know anything, the people from the region, watch out. Keep one eye
I'm from
on
Griffith.
them.
I'm from like I'm from the.
Are you from Valparaiso or something like? Where are you
from?
from?
Griffith. Yeah.
Oh boy.
It's like right next to Gary.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye on you now, Lucy. Keep your eye on him now, okay? Because he's from the region. You probably used to listen to the Loop.
And Q101.
It's all that, and he's a White Sox fan. Now it's starting to all make sense. It only took 30 shows for me to figure out.
Yeah, that's the only people that are actually White Sox fans, I think.
That's it. All right, Curtis, we have appreciated our conversation. We could go on for another hour, I'm sure. And I want to say our audience was most excellent tonight in their questioning, and they are educated voters. They want to know more, and they want to know, what's going to be done here. And like I said, this is much better than a debate, having a discussion. So safe travels, Curtis. We'll give you the last word. Convince the 10 or 15 people that aren't going to vote for you in Indiana to vote for you.
Well, I appreciate being on here, guys, and it's always fun to join you. No one asked me to run for this office. When I say no one, I'm talking about the leadership. There's a lot of people who are very interested in it. But what we're doing is we're traveling around the state. We're talking to folks who are upset that absolute truth is under attack, that the institutions that we have known, we've lost faith. We're seeing the manipulation of justice, the weaponization of race, the sexualization of our children. This has got to stop. And we cannot engage in the mediocrity of just electing the same old, same old. If you were satisfied with the leadership in the governor's office over the last 8 years, if you were happy with that, then elect anybody else but me who's running for office, because that's exactly what you'll get. You'll get the same old malaise, ho-hum type of government. If you want to get something done, then you have to get somebody in who's going to understand what needs to be done, and someone who's had that past and that history of getting in action. So I would tell your listeners to go check us out at curtishill.com. Get involved. Ours is a grassroots campaign. There's lots of folks that say, oh, somebody's got the lead and somebody's got it wrapped up. There's still a huge number of people who are undecided in this election, notwithstanding millions and millions and millions of dollars having been spent by my opponents. That's because Hoosiers are not satisfied with business as usual. And I think you're going to see an amazing change on May 7th of this year.
Well, you're a hard worker, a down-to-earth guy, and a friend. So I would say that, and Janet Gernand is going to vote for you. So you got that one. And then we also had someone else that already has voted for you. So they must have voted early, because early voting started today. So it starts today. So Curtis, thank you very much for coming on, and good luck. Let us know if we can do anything other than, tell our friends to vote for you or all that good stuff, and safe travels and good luck.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
God bless.
All right.
Ditto.
All right. You guys are pretty good. I'll tell you, Tiffany's date with Bigfoot must be going into extra innings, because she never did hear backstage. So,
no, it sounded like she tags them and then releases them. Yeah.
Yeah, but this was the one that came back. So she, it must have been a hole in the bag or something. I don't know. Oh, I do want to tell you that my squirrel count is up to 12. And there was another one. There's Chateau de Marseille squirrel relocation, program is going full speed ahead. I caught one yesterday, but today there was another one in my driveway. I don't know who's making these squirrels, but this is definitely, I think it's a Russian conspiracy. Oh, wait, hold on. I just gave away sort of a conspiracy. Let me put the banner up before Spiro tells me that. Yep, there we go. And then I got to play the goofy thing that I do. There it is. And then we got to get, yeah. Oh, wait a second. We got to do small talk. Hold on. Back it up.
Leave Mark. Yep.
Back it up. I have not listened to the small talk either, so I have no idea what he said. I just pretty much downloaded it.
I can't wait to hear what Mark drops on us today.
And ran it. So here you go. Here's Mark Small. It's too bad Curtis. Well, Curtis is still backstage listening, so he'll get to hear all of the Mark Small ranting and ravings.
Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk. Let's talk about polls. Polls don't seem to be accurate anymore. Now, one reason is that they've stopped using landlines. Landlines gave them a kind of broad general demographic of everybody at random. But it's not just how they communicate. It's then the follow-up with what are the questions. So instead of looking at questions of political candidates that people might be getting, I'm going to use an example of an issue. Now, a man named John Lott is a Florida State University criminology professor. And he said how safe guns are and how guns stop crime. Only none of what he's done has been peer reviewed in that regard. Let me give an example of why it is that he has no methodology that's legit. One, he's done some of these surveys with another member of the faculty at Florida State. And that's one thing about peer review articles, peer review studies. They don't want people from the same institution for fear that that institution will start doing a pitch for whatever the special group is that they're doing surveys on. What he did on gun safety. How have you ever been? I want to speak to the male head of the household. That's automatically eliminating people from demographics. Then when the person got on, and he would say, have you had any incidents in the last year where pulling a gun has stopped a crime? That's like calling somebody and saying, in the last 3 fishing trips, how big was the biggest fish that got away? Now that the attitude towards CDC has changed somewhat, we're beginning to get surveys that look at guns as a health problem, a health risk, and we're getting those through CDC, and they're peer reviewed. But that's what you got to look at. Are they asking you a legitimate question upon which a survey or poll can be based? Mark Small, peace.
Wow, that would have been your perfect opportunity for you, Lucy, to ask him about infringing on someone's liberties.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm glad we didn't play that. I hate to see another politician go down in smoke. But as you said earlier, Curtis is he knows how to handle himself around a lot of different people. So
he's a smart guy. I mean, we give Curtis a lot of crap, and me especially, but I mean, he laid it out, and it's absolutely true. When Governor Holcomb tried to do some crazy stuff, he stood up for Hoosiers. I mean,
anyway.
I wish that he was, more on my side on the cannabis thing, but that just seems to be more of a personal issue. I mean,
he seems like he's evolving on his immigration situation because he does listen. I mean, he'll go and he'll listen and he'll make a decision, and that is what we just don't have. Well, they'll listen to a poll if 65% of people, although. I heard that, Brad, maybe this is a question for you. What's the percentage of people that are in Indiana that are for legalizing marijuana? I think it's in the high 60s, isn't it? Or
it's over. Yeah, it's way over 50%. If they gave us like a ballot initiative, it would pass.
Now this may be this. Well, let's go to this is sort of not a conspiracy. This is sort of my thought of this is that there's a lot more Republicans that may not be in that same boat.
I feel like the last time that we talked about it, I think with the 4 of us, it was very much of a I was surprised that you guys were all on board with it.
Hey man, I'm about freedom. I got to get in Lucy's camp with this freedom.
That's the thing. Well, because Curtis mentioned freedom, but then anytime we say freedom of choice, it's that's like when Republicans will stop, because then abortion gets brought up. It's all,
and I think it depends on what background you are. I mean, Curtis is a lawyer. The law, that law thing. Those lawyers seem to stick with the
he's
law.
from Elkhart County too, which I don't understand, because like,
well, they grow a lot of weed up there.
Border, like they're on that border with Michigan, so like they have to be feeling some sort of, either everybody in that county is going over the state line, or what is it doing to the police officers in those northern counties? Like those are, and you can't stop people from being criminals, because that's like exactly what people say when they try to make like gun laws. They're like, well, the criminals won't follow those laws anyways, so
only outlaws will have guns. If you outlaw guns, only outlaws will have guns. Yeah. So
but like even like restrictions and stuff like that, like and we shouldn't punish gun owners for like the law-abiding gun owners, like we shouldn't at all. But it's just a weird.
Man, there is so much gun violence. I mean, every night, not just it's every night here in Indianapolis. Every night, somebody's being shot. Every night. And
I wanted to bring
more
this
than one.
Too. Did you guys see about the Vigo County school with the school resource officer who left his gun in the bathroom? And it was found by a student.
Yeah, that's not gun safety. I mean, I know a little bit about. I don't have a gun. I know a little bit about the gun
dereliction of duty.
No, and that's the thing. He was fired, but again, it's one of those things. How we're also
like leaving your kid. It's like putting your kid in the child seat and put it on the roof of the car and then driving away, forgetting that your kid's in the car.
And you're wanting to arm, or like the state's wanting to arm teachers too, but then we have something like this that comes up.
This is like
you're adding danger to
the lady that ate the spider. That's what it turns out to be. It's like, well, we should lock up our valuables. It's your fault because you didn't lock up your valuables. Why is it my fault? Somebody stole a mixer off my job this weekend. It's like I was chained to they cut the chain. They stole the mixer. It's like, why is it my fault that my mixer got stolen? Should I have to take it home with me every night and put them? So anyway, I'm getting all cynical because I'm old and I'm going to be yelling at the eclipse here in a minute. So yeah, they're going to have a cloud yeller and all that. So yeah, we did have eclipse today. The cloud got in front of the sun a couple times today, and then it rained. So anyway, we got to play that. I'm going to put the banner up now. We all good? If you guys straighten me out, it's been a long day for me, so have to bear with me. Let's put the banner up before Spiro hollers at me, and then let's play our goofy little thing here to get your hat out.
Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out, and let's see what's going on this week.
It's all right, Lucy. This is our 167th show. So, it's like you've been on about 100 of them probably or more. Man.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time that's a lot of time you'll never get back in your life.
I'm second only to you, John.
Oh boy, look how crazy I am. So we had our men's group yesterday at 7:15. We have a 7:15 and I wore my hat. I had to have dudes cracking up. We got one guy, Pastor Paul. He's a pastor in Kenya, and it's really cool. It's a cool group, and there's probably a third of them are pastors. It's just a really good group. We used to meet in person, then COVID came, and then Zoom, and now we do the Zoom. We used to have about 8, 10, 12 guys in person, but we have about 20 on the Zoom. So it's good. It's good. We try to, it's just basically accountable, how you doing, what's your word of the day, what's up, and all that. So I try to bring the levity into the group. So we were having some fun yesterday with my hat. They were making fun of my tinfoil. It did work good for the eclipse too, by the way. I didn't get any sunburn from outside. But so anyway, we got conspiracies here, and I started to blurt mine out before it was time. So Lucy, I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, the only question I have to ask myself is, which conspiracy do I talk about? Which thing today is a conspiracy that's going to be a fact tomorrow? So I would like to give a few conspiracy tips, aka, investigative journalism tips to folks right now. One thing that I would recommend is, first of all, go watch all of the Simpsons episodes, because the Simpsons get it right more than anybody else. South Park also does a pretty decent job of exposing some absurdity, but The Simpsons are absolutely predictive. So if it hasn't appeared on The Simpsons, it's probably not going to happen. And secondarily, I would also urge you to think about when you're doing your research, is it rumor and innuendo? My husband challenged me on the eclipse the other day because I said, well, something's going to happen. He said, well, who gave you that idea? And I said, just some random person on the internet. It's just, rumor and innuendo. I don't expect it to happen. So try and go for first party sources, get it straight from the horse's mouth. And I would also, just as an aside, recommend that you all read autobiographies because if you want to be successful, the best way to model successful people is to understand how they think. And if they've written an autobiography, then you're probably going to get right into their brain. I recommend Benjamin Franklin's. But for the current election, I'm going to make a prediction and I'm going to put, other than the Libertarian candidate, of course, Don Rainwater, I'm going to put forth that Curtis will be our candidate for governor. It will not be
Wow,
Mike Braun.
I mean, I really, I know a lot of people, but these polls, they say this and that about that and this, and we're going to have. I mean, it's just interesting. I have no clue what's going on with stuff. I mean, people call me and ask for Curtis signs and different things, and Jamie Rittenhour's, and it's been talked about quite a bit.
I really love Jamie. I think she's absolutely amazing. But she doesn't have, and this is not her fault. I mean, she had an amazing time traveling around the world with her dad being in the military, but Curtis is homegrown.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would like to see Jamie get involved with the education. I know some people make their head explode. Brad
hey,
probably
Curtis,
exactly.
when Curtis is governor, he needs to put Jamie in charge of something really, really big because
Well, I
she
tell
is
you
a
that
fascinating, elegant woman.
that's one thing. I mean, like I said, I've known Curtis for a while, and he's been so nice to me. I'm just dumb bricklayer, and he treated me like I was one of his, peers, and I'm like, wow, that's like really cool. Some of the others, I mean, they're pretty nice, but I think some of them. I think if you're too stuffy to come on this show, you should not be in office. If you can't handle this panel right here, you should not be on office. So I'm telling that to anybody that's still watching. We lost a few people during small talk. I'm sorry, Mark. No offense, but a couple of people can't listen to that. but you're dearly loved on this show. Let's say that. But you can see we got down pretty far in the weeds on the immigration thing. And these questions, there's no good easy answer to them, and it just seems like you see one side shouting at the other side about how we can do this. And one of the things I hear from people, Brad, about you is that he's a reasonable Democrat. That's a guy I could sit down and have a conversation with, unlike some others that I just can't.
No, and I think that's one of the best compliments I could ever receive from like people on the other side is that we can at least have conversations. Nothing's ever going to get solved unless we actually talk about stuff. So,
yeah, and then I don't even know if it's going to get solved, but at least we can identify the problem. I mean,
people feel heard right now. We're living in a time where like we're all yelling at the top of our lungs and nobody's feeling heard.
And I think the frustration comes out on the highways and the byways and arguments and different things. And I just think everybody just needs to take a breath and relax and all that. And Lucy, you've been a mainstay of this show. And I know that we had somebody wanting to come on the show and was saying, Lucy calls the shots on the show.
I do not. I am so freaking irrelevant. I just show up.
This show has no captain. It's like ghost riding a bike. This thing is it just rolls. It doesn't.
Lucy, do you have any thoughts on taxes, by the way?
On me? Yeah,
well,
we pay
thank
too
you
much.
for that. Thank you, because taxation is theft. Thank you, Brad. This show would not be
okay. Well, they're going to steal about $42,000 from me here in about 3 days. So I'm a little pissed about. I mean, I'm happy I'm making money, but I don't think I should have to pay that much money for them to give to
Ukraine. The good news is the 42,000 that you're giving them is only worth 10.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's like, I don't know. It just seems like we pay an awful lot of tax. You just think of sales tax and stadium tax and food and beverage tax and all that. I get it. I get it. Now, Lucy, so the first time I heard you say taxation is theft, I was in. But now it's time for mine. Okay, I already told you this about
Yes.
the squirrels. This is Russian collusion. The Russians are colluding with these squirrels at my house because you cannot tell me that I caught 12 of these squirrels and there's still 2 in my yard. So, and one of them said, one of them had a Russian accent like Boris and Natasha, and they said, I think that's the guy that does the Bullwinkle thing, isn't it? We are killing moose and squirrel tonight. Something's up with these squirrels. And I bet, I don't know
You
where's the
can't
number.
mess with squirrels.
We're going to
You
have
gotta
to
watch
start.
Rick and Morty.
I need to start a bracket for squirrel challenge. Where is this number going to stop? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out. Now, one of my friends said that they just keep, because when there's a void of one squirrel leaving, then another squirrel takes over the territory. Is that is that the
John,
squirrel
your
mafia?
house is the beacon on the hill.
Oh yeah, it is. It's I guess. Well, I'm going to get them before they get my corn. The apple tree's got a bunch of blooms back there. I long to have one apple. I just want one apple this year, please. One apple. And I only got like 10 pears out of like 500 or whatever. They just sit out there and they eat them and laugh at me. I know I bet they speak Russian. I'm sure of it. So anyway, that is all good. Oh, by the way, the chickens did not have any problems with the eclipse. I know you were wondering about that. They just sort of look around like, but that's how they always look. I've been giving them blueberries. We had a bunch of blueberries that go bad. So now they're pooping purple. I got pooping purple chickens. It's sort of interesting how that works. They love them. They love those blueberries. So anyway, the show has gone to the chickens. Thanks for coming on tonight, guys. And I think we had a great conversation with Curtis. And let me take the banter off here, the banner and the hat off. And then we can say till next week. Oh, next week we got John Kenworthy. He's running for the old Jim Banks seat. And then I believe the next week after that, we have Mark Hurt. Are you in the 5th district for the U.S.? Oh, load up your questions for Mark Hurt. He's going to come on and brave the gauntlet.
Well, he's running against Sparks, right?
Like, run against all that out there. Have you heard the Raju commercial on there?
No,
Raju?
I saw him make an appearance over in Anderson though.
Yeah, he was on Tony Katz today, and I listened to a little bit of it because I'm in and out of the truck, especially that time of the morning. And I tell you, Tony, he's not a real friendly guy. Raju was just. I'm like, it's like he almost like he was getting paid. He probably was getting paid for the interview. It's almost like he just really didn't want to even talk to the guy. So
I think unless you bring Tony a cigar or something like that, he's gonna like be mad at you.
I don't know. I think he's mad at the world all the time. So, but anyway, his commercial is pretty interesting. It's Raju, shades of red, white, and blue. It's really one of those jingles that, it's almost
that's like, in your head, isn't it, John?
Oh yeah, it's just killing me. It's killing me. It's like I'm going to move to the 5th so I can vote for the guy. Come on. So, but anyway, there you go. Let's see. We got any comments here? Oh, we got one. See, look, we got some loyal viewers here. We love our audience. They're great. And we will see you back again next week. We still have we have the 30th open. We're either going to have a bunch of candidates from Madison County. Brad, I don't know why you're getting all the good stuff here. Or Eric Doden. Eric Doden said he would come on the show. I gave him the 30th, but I haven't heard back from his people. So if anybody knows Eric Doden out there, do that. And then, hey, there's another one that on Friday, April, is that the 21st? There's going to be a podcast with Jamie Rittenauer on there. There's going to be, Watson Prunier. He's been on our show before. And then we have the guy from Family, Faith, and Politics. It's going to be 3 hosts, me and those 2 guys and Jamie Rittenauer. We get to do a 7:30 p.m. Friday special edition of whatever it's going to be called. So their folks contact us. I said, sure, we'll do something with that. So I may have, we'll see. I want you guys to be in the audience and feed me questions. Feed me the questions. Totally. So, all right. Anything else? Any last words? We lived through the eclipse. Now I got to act like I'm, something to do.
Back to normal.
Back to normal. All right. All right. Go White Sox. Go.
Yeah.
Lucy, what's your favorite baseball team?
Well, it's not even a major league. I just love the Indianapolis Indians because that was the team I got to watch growing up.
Thank you for not saying Savannah bananas. That's not basic.
I like the mud hens,
They're
the
so
Toledo
fun.
mud
Yeah.
hens. You
Yeah.
know, that's a good one. The mud hens. It's like, why do you call them the purple pigs or something? I don't know. Anyway, all right. See y'all next week, 9 p.m. Catch us, Stock Markets Neophytes, at noon on Fridays. The big inflation numbers come out tomorrow, so the market might have an eclipse tomorrow. So stay tuned. So we'll see y'all next week, 9 o'clock live here on Facebook. Lucy, you could have waited like 2 more seconds before you yawned.
I know. I almost got through the show without trying to go to
Almost got
sleep. I'm
through, but
tired.
don't tread on
I'm a
me,
mom.
taxation stuff. See you next week.